Dadhood. Modern Dadhood podcast.
Dude.
Me.
Happy
you. Dude.
2025.
That was a noisemaker sound. Maybe you'll replace my weird sound with an actual noisemaker sound.
Happy 2025 to all of our listeners.
Yay,
all
we did it.
3 of them. 2 of them being our wives.
Oh, we're going to name them all now. It's Jamie, Sarah,
And then all of our kids
Chad.
combined into one for my brother-in-law, Chad.
Yeah. Thanks again, you 3, for joining us. Quick
the
shout
best.
out to you.
We should introduce the podcast,
Oh, that's also
which is
fun.
called Modern Dadhood, an ongoing conversation about the joys, challenges, and general insanity of being a dad in this moment, 2025.
2025.
My name's Adam Flaherty. I'm a dad to 2 young women who are 11 and who are...
Get it right. Get it right. Hold on. There's
They're
2
going
of them. It's
to
hard to
be-
keep track.
I am the proud father of 2 young women who are 10 and 7, but like real close, man. Real close to 11 and 8.
And my name is Marc Checket, and I am a dad to twin boys who are going to be 7 in just about a month now. We're planning the birthday party right now. Boys are going to have their friends over. There's going to be pizza. There's going to be cake. There's going to be jumping around. It's going to be a hoot.
We're 7 now, Dad.
Yeah, we don't need a party. Just give us the keys. Just give us the keys to the car. We'll be back later.
Just give us the keys to the beer fridge in the basement.
Well, what is this? What are we doing?
This is a special kind of episode. Look, here, I'm just going to say this. Let's just forego all of the usual formalities
Skip
at the
it.
beginning.
Skip it.
Well, there's one thing we should say.
Which is?
If you're listening to Modern Dadhood, you're liking what we're doing. Doesn't matter if you've been listening since the beginning or if this is your first episode. If you like what we're doing, please tell a friend about the show. That's the way that we grow.
You can also
That would
just
mean a lot
hold
to
your
us.
you can also hold your mobile device up in front of you about 17 inches away and then just give it a thumbs up. And we will also receive that. And that's called good vibes. Okay. You put that out there in the universe, we'll receive
We'll feel
that.
it.
Yeah.
But this episode, this is like this is a special one. We don't have one specific guest, which we traditionally do in our episodes. It's a little bit of a, what do they call it? Like a
Compilation?
yeah, it's like a compilation, like a clips show. What would they
Best
call
of?
it? Like the sitcoms of the 90s always did those clip shows. What did they call them? Just clip shows?
Well, those were usually flashback episodes, right?
Okay. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, something like that. We went back through our episodes of 2024 and found a number of different selections from interviews. We had some amazing guests, by the way.
Awesome.
Found some clips from episodes. Tell me if you agree with this, Marc, after hearing these clips. I feel like they were... I keep coming back to the word surprising moments. They were moments from the episodes where I feel like you and I, after hearing what the guest had to say on whatever particular topic, we felt a little like maybe like we learned something, or it was something that we weren't expecting to hear. Is that surprising clips? Is that
surprising clips? Is it unexpected? Or is
Sure.
that just a synonym for surprise? That's not really a synonym, right? That's maybe a little
I don't
different.
know.
Unexpected.
enlightening?
Enlightening in a bottle.
So what do you think, Marc? Should we just go ahead and and get into these and start teeing up some of our favorite, most enlightening clips from 2024?
Why don't we do it? Which one should we start with? George Basil.
George Basil
Oh,
is an actor. I first learned of him in Pete Holmes' HBO show Crashing. He played
Great
the
show.
character of Leaf, which is an awesome character. And the first time we watched it was years ago. Second time we watched it was maybe early 2024. And I was like, you know what? We got to get that guy on if he has a kid, I want to get him on the podcast.
And indeed,
Sure enough,
did.
he has a kid. And we had this great conversation about him being a single parent and raising his now teenage daughter as a single parent. But in this clip, he is talking about that sort of unique relationship with his daughter and how things change a little bit when he has a partner. And, well, he can take it from there.
He can take it. He can take it from there. Why don't we roll tape?
I'm a single parent, and it's always been like that. And so there's a partnership involved between her and I, and that's always been there. And you really have to trust each other in ways that I think, because we visited a lot of my friends in Maryland, and they've got tons of kids, right? Mm-hmm. So like one family's got 3, one family's got 4. And I would see that in a household where it's like the traditional family unit is there, right? You have the nuclear family going on. Kids can kind of, because they're always adapting and trying to figure out how to manipulate in new ways, they really figure out new stuff. And sometimes it can get muddy, and I'm like, wait a second, my daughter would never talk to me like that. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. We can't talk to each other like that. We rely on each other kind of too much to ever turn that far away. But I love that about the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's healthy or not, but I don't care.
I love the term partnership. I feel like I've not really, heard anybody kind of describe the relationship with their kids in that way before. But there's something really interesting about that I like. Yeah.
I'm just always trying to figure it out. I haven't really done a lot of reading in regards to parenting or whether it's traditional or non-traditional techniques. I don't really know. I'm just feeling it out, and I'm doing my best. I can definitely tell you that sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah. Those are the ones I remember the most. Uh-huh. The times that it does, it feels like the perfect pair, and it's really fun and really great. And I've had partners, like adult partners over the years, and they kind of come in and they fill the role of stepmother to some degree, and it's great. I've watched Lula learn from these wonderful ladies and take really cool, interesting lessons and philosophies and stuff from, but still, when they're not around or when they're no longer here, it is different. It's like we have a different bond, and it takes a second for it to like reconfigure and get back to its like just us kind of thing. But yeah, I love it, man.
Let's go back to the brainstorming session for just a moment. What about the term? What do you feel about eye-opening?
Okay.
What do you think about that? Yeah.
I would probably run it through Chat GPT and say, what else you got?
Well, I have to have Chat GPT.
Eye-opening is good. That's
open right here.
Eye-opening is closer than anything else so far.
Okay. We'll keep ruminating on that as we go. What do we got teed up next? What about our dear friend, Francois Clemens?
Dr. Francois Scarborough Clemens, who played Officer Clemens on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
I think the majority of that conversation kind of falls in, I don't know, for me, the majority of that conversation kind of falls into this category of like a little unexpected, eye-opening. This was one of the conversations where we probably could have gone down so many different paths with him, right? I mean, we wanted to relegate the whole thing to fatherhood and what that means in his particular world, in his relationship with Fred Rogers. Don't you feel kind of a little bit like that episode was in so many different ways, just kind of like, wow, interesting, eye-opening, different world.
Totally different world. Yeah. And a fascinating individual who's lived through a lot. And to hear him talk about probably the most famous scene that he was involved in, which over the years has gone through waves of having a viral status, and reflect on that experience in ways that as a viewer, you really wouldn't even consider, was pretty eye-opening.
Why don't we dust off that tape, put it in the tape machine, and roll it? I think we have to talk a little bit about possibly the most I guess, iconic, famous, well-known segment that you appeared in with Fred. And I'm talking about I guess maybe the first instance where he was soaking his feet in the kiddie pool and he notices Officer Clemens walking by and invites him over to cool off with him because it was a hot day. And you did, and you shared the pool and the water, and there was the towel that was draped over his shoulder that he eventually shared. At the time, did you understand the significance, like the historical significance of that moment at that time that it was happening?
I wish I could tell you yes, I understood everything, but I did not. And it was quite a while before, because you see, Dr. King had just been assassinated on April 4th, 1968. And so it was some months later that we filmed that scene because I complained to him so intensely of my sense of loss. I said, can't you do something? I really put the burden on his lap. And I was surprised that when he came back to me, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I was disappointed when I read the script. And I thought, does he know what I'm talking about? I was definitely angry, and it was something I wanted to do actively to make up for it. And he gave me this script, and it looked so empty as I read it. And only while I was filming did I recognize that something was transpiring, and that something was lifting me up in a holy spiritual way. What is this man doing? What is he talking about? We just did something very common, put our feet in the same tub, and he was helping me dry my feet and put my boots on, none of which I needed. But I didn't understand the relationship to Peter and Jesus in the Bible. I just did not. So there were later on, there were times when I was with him and we would sit very quietly and he asked me, did I understand what he was trying to say with that scene? And it took a while and took his nudging me to go in there because I didn't feel Bible worthy. So I wasn't about to say, you were Jesus and I was Peter. That was way too much for me. And eventually it came down to that he said that there was a relationship to how Jesus treated his disciples. And that was like the first time he ever really talked about me in terms of following his tradition.
Hold on. Just got ChatGPT up here. I'm making a podcast episode about. No, that is hold on. Give me episode titles.
Did you say please to ChatGPT?
No.
Ooh, boy. You're going to be on the list, man.
Oh, shit.
You're going to be one of the first people that monster comes after.
Out of the blue, stories you didn't see coming.
I don't think so.
Terrible.
But while we're talking about AI, it would be a good opportunity to tee up a clip from our fairly recent episode with comedian Pete Holmes, in which Pete actually does talk a little bit about AI, and he reflects on his daughter growing up and kind of discovering his body of work and how he feels about that and how he expects she might feel about that or not feel about that. Why don't we let him say it in his own words?
Twists, turns, and total shockers.
I don't think so.
I'll keep working on it.
Even when I started doing my podcast, I was like, I can't wait for my kids to hear all of this because it's true. And I was like, and I wouldn't put it past me. Like I said, I want my daughter to like me and think I'm cool. I wouldn't put it past me to try to withhold those things. And what a resource. If I had to predict, I don't think Leela will be that interested in listening to every episode of my podcast or any of my podcasts. Right. I can't know that, but if I had to guess, she'll get enough of me in real life that I don't see her doing that. But if she did and she heard about whatever, it might lead to some tricky conversations for me when like I'm thinking about when I take mushrooms at Bonnaroo or whatever. But I'm like, yeah. And here's how you take mushrooms at Bonnaroo. Like I did it with a trusted friend, and I had a group with me, and we knew where we were, and we kept eyes on each other, and we were safe, and we took a small amount, whatever it is. That time I actually did take a small amount, but whatever. Here's how you do a big amount. There's such a gift to be able to share your real life with your kids in a way that you're not even talking to them. Right. I'm 28 and I'm talking to Zach Galifianakis. That's what your dad was like. What a thrill if you're curious. And maybe I'll be dead and then she'll be curious. Who knows, but it'll be there. And I actually foresee a future, not to get too weird and AI about it, where AI would be able to amalgamize the entirety of my podcast and she could just have a conversation with me at any age and just say, what would my dad have said about this when he was 28? And it would just be like, all right, loading 28-year-old Pete. That's almost certainly something that we'll be able to do.
I mean, it's not far-fetched. That probably is possible now.
No, I know it. It probably is. It might not be like released, but somebody has that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're like, should we release this? Yeah, we're about, things are going to get pretty strange, but we've done that sort of strange before. Before television, if you saw it, you could believe it. And believe it or not, that was a cultural shift where they could make something on TV look like Superman was flying. And that took the human mind a while to get over. Like you can see something and it is not. Like we forget that was also a leap, similar to here's a video of Joe Biden moonwalking on water.
Marc, here's a bit of an unexpected one because it's one of the few episodes in the history of our podcast where our guests were moms. It was Margaret and Amy, the co-hosts of the popular motherhood-themed podcast, What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. And we got into this great conversation, which really, the whole thing really just took on a life of its own.
Yeah, but this clip that we're going to listen to is one in which Margaret we're discussing the equity of the roles within the household. But she was a little bit off the cuff and her answer was fantastic.
Aside from having conversations about it and through those conversations, encouraging men who are fathers to become more involved and to sort of move that label of dad up higher on that list. I'm sure you've talked about in your podcast, like how else can we sort of encourage that to happen and keep things shifting in that direction?
It's interesting. I wonder, and I'm answering this kind of off the top of my head, so I may say something crazy, so bear with me. But I wonder, I don't know if I'm as interested in the identity part. Like, I think that my husband is someone who does not have conversations when he is away from home about his children and his identity as a father. He's also like a very nutty professor engineer who like is completely unidirectional at all times. And like a spotlight, he can only turn his light towards one thing at a time. And so I don't feel an investment in making him a person who investigates fatherhood on a different level. But we have had a lot of practical conversations in my house about how to make the work within our home as equitable as possible. And I think that there was a time where I was doing 90% and he was doing 10%. And I think we have gotten to a point where he's almost doing 60% and I'm doing 40% a lot of days. And to me, that is the interesting crux of it versus he is never going to be a person who's like, I'm going to get a book on parenting and try to be a better father. I don't know if it's his raising. I don't know if it's his DNA. That's not part of his makeup in some way. But I think his ability to make home and myself and our marriage and our family a priority did take a lot of work that I was really interested in doing.
Yeah.
I think this next one is another example that sort of almost the entire conversation falls into this category, a little bit unexpected. The fact that we spoke with a male doula, I mean, in and of itself, that's something that maybe some of our listeners haven't really even given thought to, the fact that there are men who are doulas. I think the doula in general, the idea of a doula is not something that every parent thinks about or utilizes or comes into contact with or what have you, right? So it's already kind of maybe a smaller segment.
And so we had this amazing conversation with Timothy Gant Jr., a.k.a. Teddy the Doula. And in this clip, he's explaining to us what a full-service doula means and how he, as a male doula, really connects with men in an authentic and unique way.
Nailed it.
Both of our families used doulas when we were having kids and our wives were giving birth. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it a little bit on the show, about the value of what a doula brings to the table in terms of services and support. But I wonder, for the benefit of our listeners, if you could maybe just describe, what it means to be a full spectrum doula and why, in your opinion, people should consider having one.
Yeah, for sure. And first, I want to say that that's amazing that, y'all actually had doulas for your pregnancy and birth. So I would love to know about that, how that went for y'all after, I'll go into detail. But it's a difference. So this is one thing I like to tell people, because when most people hear doulas, they'll think of like just labor and birth, doing double hip squeezes, all that kind of stuff. They don't really grasp the full aspect of what we do as doulas. So me being a full spectrum doula, I work with various forms of reproduction. So I had some clients that came to me for conception work, and, I provide fertility options, and I get them to the right people. So I offer different resources to help them, get in connection with the right people they need to, whether they're trying to conceive, whether they're, trying to just check their ovaries or, sperm count, things of that nature. Like I work with that. I also do postpartum work. A lot of doulas don't deal with postpartum. And it's a lot of things that comes with postpartum work, not just watching the baby while you sleep. There's a lot of things that actually go into it with the emotional and mental aspect of, childbirth. So like I said, so I work in various forms. So it's more things that I do more than other doulas. So that's one thing about it, that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work with some of the clients had I not worked with them during the time where they were trying out different fertility options. So the main thing that doulas really do is that we're really advocates for our patients, and we like to give them the education on top of it. So a lot of people think of just the physical, like I said, just showing up to the hospital, but it's more than that. So we do physical, emotional, and informational support. And the informational support, that's the main objective for me, especially during gestation, because of course, we're not going to be in labor the whole time I'm working with you, so it's a lot of different things, a lot of variations to it, especially working with dads. So the partners, that's one thing that I really pride myself in, because one day I'm going to be a partner and I want to know everything that I need to be able to help my wife in any way I can. That's where I come in, opposed to, some other doulas that probably just can't relate to the male aspect of things, the male struggle, and like male thoughts, we think differently. And so just being able to reach out to the dads, that's just a joy in itself. So that's just a little bit of what, us doulas do. But the main thing is I love providing information to the dads and just making sure both parties are on the same page.
Marc, we've played back some awesome clips from 2024 episodes, and we've got one more to share. Would you like to do the honors of teeing this one up?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, first of all of our guests are my favorite. Okay, so if you're out there listening, any of you guests, you're all my favorite. But having the honor, I guess, privilege, opportunity to speak with Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, the U.S. Surgeon General, 2-time serving, by the way, U.S. Surgeon General. It was just such a treat. And I think it's going to be, for me, one of the conversations in its entirety that sort of reverberates throughout my mind constantly. I mean, that's one of the episodes that I will go back and listen to. I think this one too, I don't know, it's just a cop out to say that a lot of these conversations sort of went into these very interesting and different places that I hadn't necessarily previously thought all that much about, or at least in the ways in which the good doctor sort of describes.
I don't think that's a cop out. In fact, I would encourage folks listening to go back and check out all of these full episodes if they haven't heard them, and we'll link to them in the show notes to make them easy to find. With that, let's go ahead and roll the clip.
I didn't come into, this term as Surgeon General thinking I was going to issue a report on parents and their stress and mental health and well-being. But what happened is, as I was having conversations with people around the country, it was inescapable to me that parents were really struggling. And, right now, parents are experiencing just really high levels of stress and loneliness. In our report, we note that nearly half of parents, about 48%, say that most days their stress is completely overwhelming. And that's compared to about a quarter of other adults. And when you look over time, parents have consistently reported higher stress levels than other adults. And there are a whole bunch of reasons for this. Some of these are longstanding and familiar. A lot of parents deal with sleep deprivation, worrying about finances, the safety of your kids, managing kids moving towards independence during the teenage years. And those have been stressful. They are stressful. They will be stressful. But there are also some new challenges that parents are contending with, including how to manage the difficulties of social media and technology for your kid. What's the right amount of use? How do you monitor that carefully? How do you make sure your kid's not being harmed? But we also know that the loneliness epidemic we're living through has hit kids particularly hard. We also know that we're living in the middle of a youth mental health crisis, and how to manage those are incredibly hard and challenging for parents as well. When you put on top of all of that, the fact that just the pace of change in our lives has just accelerated so dramatically, and that's made it tough for parents just even to figure out the basic question of how do I prepare my kids for the future? So all of this together has made it incredibly stressful for parents right now. And my worry is that if we don't pay attention to that and recognize that, a few things are going to happen. One is that parents are going to increasingly burn out and struggle in terms of their own well-being. Number two, that's going to affect kids even more and more, because we know that the mental health of parents does affect the mental health of kids. But finally, if we recognize that the job of parenting, the work of parenting is important to society, and that we all need to be invested in kids doing well, then we should care about the mental health and well-being of parents. So that's why I ended up issuing this advisory. I wanted people to understand just the levels of stress and strain that parents are under right now, and to come together around common sense solutions that I believe we can put in place at a policy level in terms of community programs and in terms of our individual actions that can ultimately better support parents, and that will ultimately benefit all of society.
That's it, Marc. Those are some of the best.
Shocking, unexpected, unscripted.
Very clearly unscripted.
So caught off guard, even now.
But man, it was a good year. And you know what? Yeah. 2025, we'll have some awesome guests too. I know it. Me too. Moms and dads listening, thank you. Thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate you so much. Obviously, Modern Dadhood could be found on any of the podcast platforms. We would love it if you would consider subscribing if you haven't, leaving us a rating and a review, help us turn the podcast on to a larger audience. And like I said at the beginning, please tell a friend about the show. That would be the most helpful thing, I believe.
You can find Modern Dadhood on the internet at moderndadhood.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn,
YouTube,
the tubes,
TikTok for as long as it's around.
If you find yourself on our website, you can find our back catalog of episodes there. You can also find Modern Dad hoodies and t-shirts for sale. They make fantastic gifts even now after the Christmas season. Don't forget, Valentine's Day is coming up. reach out to us if you want at hey@moderndadhood.com, HEY@moderndadhood.com.
Tell us a topic you want to hear about.
Oh, yeah, a topic would be fantastic. Maybe a guest. Maybe hook us up with a great guest. Maybe you know Barack Obama. I don't know. I don't know if you do or not. But if you do, reach out.
Well, thank you to all of our guests from 2024. Thank you to Amy and Margaret from What Fresh Hell. Thank you to Timothy Gant and Pete Holmes and Dr. Vivek Murthy and Francois Clemens and George Basil. You guys are all amazing human beings. Thank you to Casper Baby Pants and to Spencer Albee for the music in the podcast. Thank you, Marc, for being my co-host. It's a pleasure doing this podcast with you.
Craig, that was so unexpected.
Is that the word? Is that the title?
I don't. We're still workshopping that, dude. Still brainstorming.
All right, we'll take the last one.
Well, hold on now. But thank you, my man. Because this show was originally your baby, and you know what? You've made it into something incredible and amazing, and I'm happy to be in the car for the ride, my guy.
Welcome.
And last, certainly not least, thank you for listening.